no matter how we traveled there otherwise, we never would have seen it the way we did. So slowly and so completely. That's what was so cool about this project, was that we didn't have a motor on the boat, so we couldn't just head out when there was no wind, and then when there was too much wind, we had a prudent captain, so that, you know, maybe that's why we ended up not being swamped and dying, you know, who knows.
The plan, to retrace the route that Leif Eriksson followed 1,000 years ago on the first Viking voyages of discovery. From Eric the Red's farm in southern Greenland, up the coast as far as the Arctic Circle, across the Davis Strait to Baffin Island in Canada, and then all the way down the Labrador coast to Lanso Meadows in Newfoundland, the only confirmed Viking site in North America. All this aboard Snorri, named after the first child born to the Vikings in North America. An authentic replica Viking ship, or Knar, 54 feet long, square rig sail, oars, no motor, no cabin. Viking Voyage 1000 grew out of the imagination of a writer from Mississippi.
So now I have to pretend like everyone else.
Hotting Carter convinced a large clothing retailer to sponsor the entire project.
No real sailor would have ever dreamed this trip up. It had to be somebody like Hotting. It's too nuts.
We really hoped to be sailing, how many days ago was that now? 8 days ago. And every day we said, well, we'll sail today. And it still hasn't happened.
Yeah. Got
it? Dean Plager was the last of the 12 crew members to be chosen.
When Hotting called me and told me I was going to be on the crew, first thing I did was call Terry. And he says, great, now there's 3 sailors on the crew.
It was a struggle between feeling excited about it and thinking this is an incredible thing. This is an incredible adventure, you know, that we're about to start on. But the other half of that is thinking, like, we have no idea what we're doing. You know, we're starting at too low a basic skill level to be able to pull this thing off.
How new was the crew? I mean, you know, it was completely new. They were new to sailing. They were new to each other. They were new. Some were new to the outdoors. They were new, about as new as you can get.
Okay. And then practice.
That was what he was trying to do?
He was trying to do a slippery head chant.
He was pretty slippery.
For the very first time I ever met Hotting, he had gone right down the line and told me how, you know, this person's been sailing for so and such an amount of time, this person's been sailing this kind of boats and for this much time, and Hotting, you know, that all sounds great, but you know what you admit that you don't know anything about boats, so what makes you qualified to pick a sailor? And he allowed us. That was a good point, and we decided we'd just wait and see who showed up.
After getting to know Hotting, it didn't surprise me in the least to the quality of the crew he found.
So the daisy chain just goes through like this, is that right? Well, I want to keep doing the daisy chain. Let me think about this. What's the thing? You know, Homer?
No, I just was going to tie a slip knot.
Yeah, we don't like
Are there 2 different size oars or more than 2 different size oars?
one size.
Okay, the commands are going to be for rowers. Give way means go forward. And if you don't figure it out, I'll probably say go forward. Port side, give way.
Well.
Like this?
And instead of pulling down, if you pull a bite out towards you,
Yeah.
like even fall backwards on it, pull this way, and then your last motion is to slide down.
You know what they're saying?
With Snorri finally ready to sail, we had time for a few days' worth of sea trials along the coast of Maine.
Dang. I'm impressed. Come on.
I'll think about it.
Oh, and he dove in? You're psycho.
He's in already.
Yeah, I love this!
Whoa. You got a headache, don't you? I didn't even feel that. I feel fairly numb, but those people over there are enjoying my body, I can tell.
My goal is to make this an adventure for all of us.
Ready? 2, 3.
Make it something that sort of has a lot to do with just like acting and on your imagination and having fun. And because of the dangers involved in this, and because of the fact that not very many people know how to sail canoe, I've had to make this more organized and more like an expedition than I would like. But the good thing is I threw in a pretty raw crew. So I think no matter what, it will be an adventure. There's the boat.
Snorri was shipped over to Greenland on a container ship. She arrived a couple of weeks late, and getting her ready to sail took more valuable time. We had 1,900 miles to travel, and at the most 8 weeks to do it in. We needed to make an average of 40 miles per day.
That one here is from my wife.
Yeah, I think we should put it on.
And that one is from my friend.
Yeah,
And the other two here is from my wife.
It's time to go. It's been time to go for a while.
This is the first time we've all been together on the boat as a group, all 12 of us. And there are some of us, just because of work schedules, during the month of May, that there are some of us that have not had the benefit of being on the boat very much. We're on the boat now. We're in Greenland. We're on the boat. It's more or less ready to go. Right now, let's talk about if this boat sinks. Whenever the decision is made to abandon ship, hopefully it will have been made with enough time that we will have time to get into our immersion suits and prepare ourselves as best we can for whatever comes after that. Hopefully the boat won't sink turtles.
Right.
Taking the life raft with it.
Does it deploy underwater?
It doesn't. It doesn't inflate itself underwater,
Okay,
but
does
it pops loose and floats to the surface.
Okay.
I remember that day pretty well, actually. It was the day we first left from Brattelied, from Eric the Red's farm, trying to get going. We'd row madly for a wind line and only to have it die, and then it would appear behind us and it would appear off to the side.
And then all of a sudden we rode into it, and it kicked in. It was like the trip just began like that.
backdrop for sailing a vessel like this, having some of the oldest granite on the face of the earth to either side of us and dodging huge masses of ice that have calved off the glaciers is just dramatic. I think it's fantastic.
And then we got on the other side of the ice field and the wind died, and we ended up rowing again.
Can't get any darker than this tonight.
We were all together as a crew that was going to be on the boat for the first time. And then it was so bloody frustrating. The wind was in the wrong direction. The benefit of that was we had to sail the boat all the time, tack back and forth, make almost no progress. But there was no sort of sitting back and just cruising. We were sailing all the time and practicing those maneuvers. And in pretty tight quarters. I mean, we were, starting tacks less than 100 yards from the sides of those fjords, which at the time I thought was pretty risky because the winds get less predictable when you get close there. And, we had no motor, no chase boat. It made me a little nervous.
When we first started sailing, started doing sea trials, we discovered that the rudder basically didn't work. We could turn the rudder is offset on one side, so it's an asymmetrical force being applied to the boat, and we could turn fine to one side, but we couldn't turn fine to the other side to the point where we were having a hard time doing things like missing islands.
The very first rudder we had didn't steer the boat. Literally a piece of plywood, a flat piece of plywood, steered the boat better than the first rudder. We had another rudder designed for us that looked like a Viking rudder, but it really wasn't. And a lot of what made it work, same as the piece of plywood, was just the massive surface area. And the problem was that put a lot of strain on the boat. And the withy, we had started with hemp rope. That broke immediately. We had gone to Roblon rope, which is a man-made fiber. That didn't last that long. And then we went to combi line, which again, steel and polyester, and that really only had a couple 100 miles on it when that broke.
The rudder is a nice issue for me because it helped to bring the past to us. The sense of putting this whole project in a context of the past and solving things and figuring things out, it really did that. The rudder did. So thank God for that horrible rudder.
3 days to get to Narsak. It was about a little less than 30 miles.
Do you think when we're out here we'll be able to tell which way the wind's blowing?
Not hard to imagine why they call it Cape Desolation.
Yeah. This place looks like it was created by weather that isn't happening right now.
Anyway, this has like made my day. I mean, actually, this place is amazing. We've all been walking around just like shocked by it.
Everybody on the boat has all their clothes on and are huddled in sleeping bags. I think they're still cold. When the wind failed us, we could always just venture onto the shore for a hike, for a swim in a shallow pond, or just a little time apart from the rest of the crew.
We started 9 days ago or 10 days ago, and we've made 50 miles. I guess average about 5 miles a day, something like that. But at the same time, we all sort of know that, you know, when we can, we'll make up some miles. So I figure that's what we'll do. And we're sort of getting ourselves set for going out into the ocean, because we haven't really been out there except for like a half hour the other day. And if we're lucky, we'll get a nice wind coming from behind. If not, we'll be tacking and getting wet and sprayed.
What about this little storm we got going?
It's not storm, it's only maybe a little gale.
Yep.
I need a volunteer.
Han har brug for en frivillig. Er nogen, der vil prøve?
Any volunteers?
I don't know, it's fun. It's fun to be in town like this, but it's so drastically different than where we've been for the past 2 weeks, where we've only been seeing like 1 or 2 people or no people. Now we're outside the city, the big city, and everyone's actually a little blasé here about our Viking ship. Great, thank you. Which is good for us, you know. We don't need to be the toast of the town all the time.
Now we're getting ready either to cross the Davis Strait here or further north. There's the advantages to doing it from here and from Sissimute. Sissimute, the advantage is a shorter crossing, much shorter crossing, but it also is quite a number of miles to the north, which we then have to make coming back down on the other side, and it is getting late, later than I expected to still be here.
So it's that balance, you know. Do we go with what we want to do, or do we go with what makes sense? I don't trust just to open it up and say, hey, what do you guys feel about this? Because I don't want it, you know, if I feel strongly about how it should come out, I don't want to risk having it come out the other way.
We talked on the side about it, and I knew we weren't going up north. Because but he had this need in a way to include everybody in the crew, and he was great about it.
This brings back all the memories of all this sort of like tension and subterfuge and not quite full, I think, honesty in front of everyone.
We know what it looks like now to be offshore in this boat. Are you willing to do that for that extra, you know, 1,000 miles? Right.
Can I add one?
I mean, I know I'm sounding like I'm being, like I've already made my decision, and in a way, you know, I'm definitely leaning towards getting on with this. When we went around the circle and everybody was so willing to disregard, you know, what was so plain to me.
I personally would like to try and do what we set out to do.
It made me feel like, you know, what? You guys don't know. Well, let's make this boat ready to go to sea, and we'll get back to you.
How do you feel now, an hour later, about the fact that we're leaving?
I'm glad now.
Yeah.
So just because we know what to do, so.
I like the idea that what we're responding to is, I think the way sailors do respond is you respond to the conditions rather than to your own wishes.
Look how far that is.
It makes me
Once we squeeze through this slot between the iceberg and the island, we're going to bring the sail down and kaye on the way down. Okay?
Onboard harmony.
Spin them around!
Sailing this boat for the last couple of weeks, I've really come to respect it. And one of the things that is really nice is that it doesn't go very deep into the water.
5 fathoms.
And so that we can tuck up into little teeny tiny hidey holes like this. I mean, it's a 54-foot boat, and we're protected almost all the way around. And you know, this kind of spot right here would strike fear into the hearts of anybody whose boat, like most modern sailboats, who go way down into the water. And we have the luxury of, you know, spots like this all up and down the coast.
Ooh, tasty out of that, huh? Great.
Terry.
Yeah.
Tell us a little about what's going on right now, deep in the cave here.
Well, this morning we got a message from Lisa Mullen that included a message that Dr. G. Bigelow had written to us, some archaeologist who has spent many years studying, I guess his specialty is Norse archaeology. I mean, spent many years in Greenland and the Faroes and Iceland and everywhere else that's cold and wet and dank. And he, I guess, has been reading our website and has known about the project from the very beginning since he lives in Maine. And he's now, knowing that we intend to cross Davis Strait from Nuuk, he's very concerned and he's demanding that Land's End supply us with a chase boat, whether we want one or not. I think is sort of the gist. And I'm responding to him. I'm writing him an email and I'm telling him that I'm very grateful for his concern, but that he shouldn't even think he knows anything about what is actually going on out here. Anchor up and down. It occurred to me as we were sailing out of there that the reason why Vikings never evolved a sailboat that could sail upwind is because to sail upwind in these latitudes is to freeze to death.
Late afternoon, the rudder withy pulled the framing loose in the stern, and at midnight that night, when we changed watches, right after changing watches, the withy broke. Literally the man-made polyester and steel cable snapped, and the rudder floated out sideways. The rudder's on the side of the ship. The rudder floated out straight out sideways. The only other place it's attached is at the top plank, the shear plank, and that just folded the shear plank right over. While wrestling the rudder on board, we snapped the tiller off.
I don't know if there's enough light to see me by, but we just had a rudder break, and one of the frames, and so there's lots that's up in the air right now.
The structural area around the rudder really went haywire last night and broke in a couple of places. This was like the moment, you know, in which we started testing the boat and testing ourselves, and doing things the way the Vikings did everything. And I don't know if we've passed that test.
The Canadian Coast Guard arrived in a large icebreaker, picked us up, and towed Snorri back to Greenland.
It does bother me a little bit now that those people out there that were doubters, that said we were fools, we've now given them fuel for their fires. They can now say, see, you were fools.
I was more uneasy the night before. When everything was going fine, we just were slamming into seas, and I'm sleeping on the barrels, and I can just hear the boat when it hits one of those. I mean, it's like a drum. It just sort of booms. And I was sort of paying attention to that tone of this drum and just listening to it and hoping that it was going to keep, ringing clear.
We did some offshore sailing, we did some inshore sailing, we beat our brains out, we jibed, we rode in fog, we rode with no charts. We did a little bit of everything, and it gave me a lot of confidence to the point where I was perfectly fine saying, yeah, we can cross Davis Strait.
I don't know about the headline.
Can't think of anything else to ask you.
That's it.
Bye-bye, Doug.
Over and out.
See you next
See you
year.
next summer. The next year we returned to Nuuk in the middle of June. Before Snorri could go back in the water, Rob and the crew had to repair the damage from the year before and add new structural pieces to make her stronger. We gave every piece of line and every inch of woodwork another protective coat of pine tar. Down at Nuuk's old harbor, we took part in some friendly competition with the locals, doing everything we could to get ready for the months ahead.
No!
Instead of 12 people in the crew, this year we were 9. Andy, Elias, Jan, and Trevor had all decided not to return. Our one new addition was Erik Larsson, the Dane.
Was this like a before and after shot?
Happy birthday!
Thank you very much, Doc.
Couple of new lines there, right there on the side of your eye. 30 years old today.
And we are very proud here to be your host in Greenland. And we're proud to be able to see you off this way. And I hope you will have a very, very pleasant journey. And I hope to hear from you.
What is this? How do I feel?
I feel ecstatic. 5 years in the making, and this is it.
Yeah.
This is it. I'm stoked. Couldn't be happier. Awesome time. Ready to move on. Looking forward to going north, and beautiful day for a sail.
If this rudder doesn't clunk over.
This year, the rudder system was much stronger, but it still needed a lot of fine-tuning.
See, make sure this one's working well. The first winter, we went over to Denmark and Norway and talked with people there, and they were very helpful. And so the solution was we put in a much larger frame. We put in a couple of framing members there. We moved the rudder back 11 inches. Probably changed the angle it hung as far as hanging in a little bit.
By the time we went through all these, shenanigans of had 4 different rudders, we're shaving little bits off here and there and figuring out which one was going to work. By the time we were all said and done, we went full circle from this big old hunkin' foil-shaped rudder that was way too big and put too much stress on things.
And we ended up making the first rudder work.
feel like I have a pretty good handle now on Viking rudders and what it was all about. And their boats were completely balanced and sort of in tune with all the forces throughout the entire boat. And the rudder is one small part of that.
It's voodoo. It's black magic. See that tiller? The boat's basically steering itself. I didn't expect it to do that.
So what's your plan at this point? You're going to continue with the Viking clothing?
Yeah, but the problem is I was saying that publicly. It means I'm going to have to now. See, I haven't said it to this thing before. Is that now I have to go ahead and try to wear them every day. I'm a little worried for when we're sailing into the wind and it's raining, but.
Like the coastline coming up here was dramatic. Just jagged peaks covered with snow. This year, it's just amazing.
Wow, look at that sail. Yeah.
All the changes, the strengthening of the boat just makes me happy, and things seem to be going really well.
John Gardner, good dealing.
Here we are.
Gather to meet some cards here, boys.
Morning after the Arctic Circle crossing. Goodwill abounds.
Break out that meat.
Brotherly love.
Hand me those cards. I can't
And
read.
kapaka.
I toast this boat.
Yes.
The rudder that steers it. And the people that stand behind the tiller.
My toast is actually just to you guys.
Oh,
Lovely Sissamute. Gee, how are you eating Viking fries in a modern grocery store in Sissamute, Greenland?
I feel like we're blending right in. Eating local food, shopping like everyone does here.
This year, 4 of us shared cooking duties, while the other 5 took turns helping with prep and cleanup.
Hobnob crisis.
You know where I get hobnobs? At Brookson? They have hobnobs. No?
What? Well, I don't know. As far as our popularity as cooks go, how would you think we're ranked?
Oh yeah, let's do rank ourselves.
I would say...
Who's number 1? All right, who's number 4? Who's number 4?
Doug. If he just stopped trying to cook beans, his stock would rise dramatically. But he can't cook a soft bean. Eric's been pretty good, but he uses too many cans.
Oh, yeah, I used 8 cans the other day.
Son of a bitch. And you know, I'd say I probably head up the best of the cooks, but I rely heavily on pasta.
Wait, you're trying to say you cook better than me? You're trying to say you score higher than I do?
We'll have to ask the crew, Hod.
This is the coast of Baffin Island, right here, and you can see that there's very little of the coast that has no ice. Most of it has significant amounts of ice. You know, Sissamute to the Hall Peninsula, if that would clear out, that would be actually a great shot, and that's about 375 miles. I'm feeling like, you know, let's get the hell out of town. Yep. Tired of being a circus exhibit. The negativeness seems like it's increasing. You know, definitely. I mean, I definitely has over the last, especially up, you know, coming into Sissamute. I mean, so, and like Terry was saying, I think it just sort of grows on itself. You know.
It only takes. I mean, say we were allowed to use the dinghy.
Hey Homer, cut the shit, would you? You know, it's like it's got to be done. If you don't want to do it, then thanks.
If you don't want to do it, then what, John?
Yeah. What is the next option?
So you never want to be on video?
Well,
then let's have it be a consistent
John,
thing, all right?
Film right now.
In video, and it sits there.
Living together so close and for so long, of course there was the occasional flare-up.
That's not a cool way to communicate. Sticking his hand in, saying no. If he doesn't want to be videoed, use your mouth and communicate.
But despite moments like this one, for the most part, the crew got along remarkably well.
I didn't mean to jump in your face.
I didn't mean to disrespect.
We're all cool, so maybe we should, if everyone's okay, start the video again. Maybe it's hiding.
Oh, it was recording anyway the whole time.
Great.
Good shots of Terry's feet.
It's about 2 o'clock in the morning right now.
And it may look like it's bright as day out here, and it is. It's still pretty bright, but if you've been here, been watching it change, it's definitely getting darker now than it has in the past. And the Arctic summer is definitely slowly waning.
Southbound 2, Viking ship Snorri, Viking ship Snorri. Over.
Viking ship Snorri, good afternoon, Nadine. Let me do a very quick sort of overall analysis. There's a low pressure system sitting over north of Greenland, and there's a low pressure system sitting over the Hudson Bay region.
Lulu is a woman's knife. Ditty bag here.
A needle case.
The universal man.
My third ditty bag. All sorts of fun stuff to play with, you know. Keep you busy.
Keep going, boys, keep going. Leave today or tomorrow with subject to very likely east to northeasterly gale conditions. I would be a bit concerned with the kind of weather that you would run into on Wednesday.
No, we'll have to wait another 10 years.
I think between now and Sunday, you've had a great opportunity to make some distance.
We're going. The way that all came about. There was a forecast from a professional forecaster who also has a very good reputation. What? Is anybody really uncomfortable with this?
No.
No. Me. No. Okay. I mean, just know that other, Herb's forecast is out there, and like we said, he's good. Michael Carr is also good, and if it turns out that Herb is the one we should have believed, then it's gonna suck. Port side, give way.
Thank you. Should we bust the axe?
Golly. Who might lose their arm?
I'm hoping an offering will ensure our luck. And a haircut's been long overdue.
Well, we were drifting and complaining about it. It's about 5 in the morning. We're not just drifting and becalmed anymore. Trying to sail, trying to sail a little south of west to get to Baffin. Wind's blowing about 20 knots, and swells and waves are anywhere from like 6 to 8 feet maybe now and then. It's pretty wild. I guess we're gonna have to fight our way to Baffin this time.
It was like riding a Bronco last night, but I'm sure as heck glad that we didn't end up doing it again this morning.
I remember that day with those pilot whales. They were there so long that you just got tired of looking at them.
That was that crossing. I mean, it's really the only open water crossing we did, with the exception of Hudson Strait. But this was the real deal, This was, you're gone. You're out of sight of land, nothing on your horizon for 360 degrees, and you're out there and you're dealing with whatever comes up because you don't have any other choice.
Well, we've been out here about 4 days now. I feel great. Last year I was sort of wondered if we could really meet the test of crossing Davis Strait, and I don't know if we've really passed yet this year, but we keep going. I guess it's the only thing you can do. Gives me a lot of respect for the Vikings, of course, just setting out like they had no idea where they were going.
Oh my dang. We have clear sky, sunshine. We're sailing the course we want to sail. We have a few icebergs scattered around just for our viewing pleasure. Life is good again.
The dreaded, not just Davis, but the dreaded Davis.
riding out another windless gale.
Another phantom gale.
And as we know, God helps those who help themselves.
8:45, Sunday the 9th, and we've just spotted the very edge of the Cumberland Peninsula on Baffin Island. Woohoo! It's been a long time coming. We've been out here. We've seen a little bit of everything. We've had a gale. We've had flat calm. We were actually rowing last night in the middle of Davis Strait, and now, just a couple hours after the sun has come up, we've seen Baffin Island. It's still going to take us like, I don't know, a couple, 3-4 days to get there at this pace, but we've seen it now.
I tell you, the one thing that haunts me was the first bear we saw.
That scared the hell out of me. This sucker's like swim fast, run fast, eat fast.
It was pretty funny. We came rowing into this anchorage in this harsh land.
I looked up on the cliff and I see this giant white thing, and it's not unusual to see old fishing buoys or chunks of styrofoam.
John Abbott goes, "Hey, what is that white thing up there?"
But this thing looked huge, and it had this yellow tint. And I looked up and I asked John Gardner, "John, does that look like a bear to you?" And he kind of sniffed. He went.
I was actually looking at the thing when it went, and looked at us.
Sure enough, it's a big polar bear sitting up here.
We were all going to get out, and it was our first land, first Baffin Island, so I'm sure everybody would have gotten out of the boat. And if that bear had been on the other side of that ridge sleeping, I can't imagine what it was going to be like.
You don't have to outrun the bear, you just got to be able to run faster than one other person on the crew.
But this land is, it's harsh and it's cold, and we thought Greenland was remote and desolate, but this place it's eerie, it's so barren.
All right, Mexican night. Yeah, Viking ship Snorri.
Rob, what are you making?
I'm making a bang stick so that if we get visited by a polar bear tonight, we'll probably burn the boat down trying to get this to work. And we'll be another one of those Mary Celeste mysteries. What happened to those 9 Goombas who went off on a Viking ship?
We don't really know how to deal with them. We don't know if we're in danger. We've decided that we're going to do polar bear watches just as a precaution and make sure it doesn't swim out to get more friendly with us. But from everything we've read, it's sort of ambiguous as to how predatory they are.
I'm surprised the polar bears didn't come at dark. They all came during the day, and I was surprised they didn't come at night, because boy, if they'd come at night, even doing bear watch, I'm sure they would have been right on top of us before we knew it.
We are surrounded by polar bears right here. I think we saw 4 all wandering down, ambling to the water, and we're kind of stuck because the current's no longer with us and the wind's against us, and so we're kind of making our final stand here, and the shotgun's ready, and we're all a little nervous.
Okay, not looking good for the home.
He looks like he just wants to jump.
Yeah, badly wants to
Go
get
and
out
put
here.
your head down. Bad bear. Bad.
Go home, come on.
This is so exciting. I've never been eaten before.
2, 3.
We did a polar bear watch during the night, and as you can see, we're here to tell the tale this morning. We went out under high winds and sped off. At one point, we had walruses so close to the bow, saw a big 1.5-ton surface, and we thought we were on top of a rock. Doug yelled "rock," much to the surprise of everyone around us, and then it rolled over. We saw its big tusks.
Happy birthday to you.
It's my birthday.
Happy birthday, dear Harding. Happy birthday to you. Aww. Thanks, fellas.
Actually, I was going to say, we've been rowing for 5 of the last 6 days. We took a day off along the Labrador coast. These guys are doing amazing.
This is the Iron Strand on the northern coast of Labrador.
I was walking around like on the shore here, seeing bear prints and wolf prints and caribou prints.
Any of these beasts that roam wild out here, it's just such a comforting thought to know that they're here and there's nothing that's impending around them that's going to take away their environment. And I think about how freely we give away the habitat that we have, and this is the Arctic's going to become a very important place in decades to come.
This is beauty, and we did it. We got here, and it still overwhelms me when I think about it. Right here in Labrador, our biggest challenge has been just rowing. We have to row every day, anywhere up to 12 miles in a day, which is about a 10-hour day to row that far. It hasn't been a north wind for maybe 2 weeks, and so it's been very trying, with our patience, and all the guys are handling that really well. Just, we have to wait until the right thing happens.
It's 7 miles.
Right, exactly.
4 to 5 hours of rowing.
Hopefully I'll come down the stairs and Pat and my friend Jay all the way to the Arctic Ocean. February. Look, it's
yeah.
It's gotta be a naked picture.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. I think it's the same.
We're gonna be shot. Right. All the literature says, turn around the harbor maybe.
There's reasons why it was important to make progress when we're in the northern part of Labrador. One is crew feelings. 2 would be food that we had on board. And the third one would be getting off the water before the real fall storm started to hit.
I'm pretty exhausted. We sailed through the night and made about 100 miles down the Labrador coast. It was high time. The crew was getting pretty anxious. And then last night when we were like 3 in the morning, we were going like 4 or 5 knots. One of the guys started talking about his cats at home, and Rob came over and hugged me. So I think that this has turned the corner for us, so that we feel a little bit better about the fact that it's September and we're still in northern Labrador.
See, when we were out gathering this kelp here, I mean, you don't mess with kelp, especially if it's wounded. I mean, we got this. Harding stood up there in the bow with the harpoon ready, and the kelp just peeked out of the water. Their eyes met. You could see it. This tension of the moment, and as this kelp just turns away, tries to escape, Harding jumps over it and stabs the harpoon right into it. It was beautiful.
Fearless, isn't he?
It was some hunt.
You don't think we should put 1 layer of peat down, maybe? All right, and the rest of these we'll just lay down, on these rocks.
A local hunter had made us a gift of a caribou leg. To cook it, we wrapped the meat in kelp, to steam it and to prevent burning. Finally, we placed a layer of peat over everything to hold in the heat. After an hour or so, it was done.
There's a boat. There's a boat.
Right here.
Meat eaters rejoice.
Oh my God, you guys, this looks so good.
It smells good.
All right. Wow.
That looks just great, huh?
Is it good? Oh, it hit me.
It is great.
Oh. Doesn't get any better than this, does it, guys?
Oh boy. Oh no. It's trees, damn it, trees.
I ought to let you guys fish this school. They don't like my stuff.
Giving the old girl some Sunday go to meeting clothes. We're downwind, about 15 knots of wind, and we're probably under 200 miles to go now to Alonzo Meadows. The crew has undergone an evolution, just like everything else in the boat, just like the rudder has gone through its evolution. We started out with 12, and this year have come back with 9, and that was an incredible improvement, just in physical space. We've definitely evolved as a crew into a working team. You know, we certainly still have our ups and downs, but it's been easy this year.
When we hit Henley Harbor, which was across the Belle Isle Strait, I knew we'd made it. You know, we'd proven we could get there.
25 miles to Alonzo Meadows from here, which on a good breeze is 4 or 5 hours, and we're all really ready for it. We've been waiting for this day for a long time.
Conditions looked right for our final sail, and across the Strait of Belle Isle, a crowd was gathering to greet us.
It's 175 true.
Yeah. More like 200. We gotta be able to steer 200 right now.
This course isn't going to cut it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's off by about 10 degrees.
But when the wind shifted, we had no choice but to follow it back to Henley Harbor for the night.
Oh, I'm disappointed. At some point you just want to get over there. Also thinking that an awful lot of people there are waiting to see us. Someone may have to leave before we get there.
Okay, come to ours. Go ahead, Doug.
Well, we set off sailing downwind at about 15 to 20 knots to go to Alonzo Meadows, the last 25 miles, and then the wind died after, I don't know, probably like 2 or 3 hours. So we've been rowing. And it seems fitting. That's how we started off this whole thing, was doing a lot of rowing, so we're rowing to the end.
I always joke if I could have found a way for us to fail again and have to go back a 3rd year, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Today, how long ago was that? 1998, so 5 years ago. It's a long time, and I still, I think about it all the time.
Understatement to say it was once in a lifetime, because there isn't anything like it again. Probably never will be.
gentlemen, on behalf of the government of Newfoundland and Labrador, I take great pleasure in welcoming the Viking Snorri to our province.
We had to swim ashore. I mean, there was no other way for us to properly end that trip.
The memories created by that trip are still very much with me. You know, that could easily not come around again in one lifetime. So I'm very fortunate to have done it, but I also miss it. You know, here I am sitting in Rockland in the middle of winter.
One of the things I'm dealing with now in my life is that, you know, I had this grand plan to get my sailboat and sail around the world. And this Viking voyage has satisfied that to an extent that I'm having trouble getting fired up to go do something like that again.
It's the fundamental signature of the human spirit, and we see it here.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was the best experience I've ever had.